Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of another episode of the Reckless Paradise podcast. If I can speak today, I am your host, Dystro, and tonight's episode is a first time ever of this particular album. We have covered the band before, but not this album. Excuse me. The band in particular, it is Pink Floyd, but the album is the Dark Side of the Moon album, and excuse me, we have never covered this uh, album before in its entirety or did a breakdown on it. I know we have done one on the wall before, which is somewhere in the archives in the YouTube channel. Um, but this one is going to be kind of interesting. And I mean that in a good way because Dark Side of the Moon is like one of those revolutionary albums of the time. And some of the songs like they kind of make you go on it like an adventure. I mean, with every Pink Floyd album, they always probably do that. But um, this one in particular, Dark Side of the Moon, it is from 1978. And I had listened to it last night, and I did notes. I took notes this time. And I was actually kind of surprised on like how, um, I guess like how revolutionary, and like how, I guess of the time it would be, I guess if you want to call it that. Um, but what I mean by that is like Pink Floyd is not usually known for doing a lot of like songs that have lyrics to it. Like some of them are kind of a like instrumental and it kind of goes into the next song or flows into the next song. Um, and that's with like I think every album of theirs. Um, but before I go any further, I do want to preference this like with the breakdown episodes. We do a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, and then we take however many songs, and well, we tally up all the scores, divide it by however many songs there is, and then we get a final score. Um, so let's get started here. So my first, or the first song I should say, is "Speak to Me." I know on some of them, on song meanings, on the breakdown of like the album details, they have "Speak to Me" slash "Breathe" on it. But then if you just go into the songs list and just look at "Speak to Me" and then "Breathe," it's like totally different things. Um, but I think it was actually kind of interesting that when you go into the song "Speak to Me," you hear like some of the like sound bites that are going to be within the like other songs, like "Great Gig in the Sky," "Money," "Time," "Brain Damage," and "Us and Them." So it was kind of like this is what you're kind of getting into. um but then like you hear the first heartbeat go and begins and grows. You start to breathe and you are born. You get exposed to external sounds and influences like if those adults' voices saying things you couldn't really understand yet. But then you can also get exposed to your mother's cares and worries, smiles you give and tears you cry. And good advices, balance on the biggest wave, you're raised towards an early grave. So it's kind of like, okay, like you're getting birthed into existence and all stuff, but then this is like what's gonna kind of like uh go into it. I mean, I guess that was from Breathe too, but I'm gonna probably loop them both together because it kind of goes into Breathe. But Speak to Me is like it's really cutting edge stuff. It's kind of like it was an operatic sort of ordeal, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. But I give Speak to Me an 8. But then when I go into Breathe, I gave it an 8.5. But with Breathe, it's basically saying, appreciate life. Basically, like enjoy it while you laugh, like while it happens. Because, some of them, kind of try to break away from, monotony and, you like typicality, sort of thing. And it's, like I said, like, mother's cares and worries and then great good advices and all that stuff. Um, I think it's like two solid like songs to open the album with. Um, and then goes into On the Run, which On the Run it was kind of a super surreal thing where it's like like you hear a guy running in an airport and all stuff, and it's a crazy thing that's like crazy thing in life that like drives you to insanity by like kind of thinking too much, like your mind's kind of always on the run. And it's actually kind of interesting like how like when you when you hear the guy in the song running, he's trying to make it to his gate, but then his gate is like it's already been taken off, so the plane takes off and then you hear like a big huge boom, and it's kind of like a metaphor of like maybe that was like a good thing for him to not be on that flight, but it also kind of predates like pre 9/11 with that flight. I don't know if it was kind of like one of those things where it's like how in Family Guy where they always like predict the future and all that stuff. I wonder if that was like their thing, be like, hey, like don't go on a plane on, September 11th, 2001. I mean, that could probably happen, but you just never know. Um, I gave On the Run an 8.5. Um, and I mean, it's for good reason. It was mostly instrumental, which I didn't mind. Um, Sometimes with some instrumentals, I guess it has to be something that like if it like moves somebody, that's cool. But if it doesn't move a lot of people, like I'll just put like kind of a low score, not a low score, but kind of like put it like at a reasonable score. But I think it was kind of interesting that when I looked it up, it was like, like um the guy runs to his gate. He misses his flight. I mean, it was a good thing that he missed his flight because the plane just goes and explodes. Then it translates into or translates it transitions into time, which is like another key component of the whole album here. Um, so when I was looking at it through rose tinted glasses, it's like when you are young, you always think of the unlimited time and ask things off without doing them. And then when you grow old and you kind of realize that, you missed out on certain things and certain things in life that maybe you could have done, in that lifetime. Excuse me. And I've always liked the groove of the whole ensemble of Pink Floyd. I mean, especially with that bass, though. But then when you look at another way, through rose-tinted glasses. It's like you grow up and enter the rat race of society. You realize passing of time and experience first disappointments. In parentheses, no one told you when to run. And then when means to get older, every day is getting shorter. Never seem to find the time. It's like time is passing you by, and kind of take time for granted, because like you're only on this earth for a certain amount of time, no pun intended, but you're on this earth for a certain amount of time, and if you don't take the world by by its ears or by its antlers, or how am I supposed to put it in layman's terms here? If you don't take the like that saying, take the bull by the horns, like if you don't take it by the horns, it's going to pass you by. And in with this case, like there's some things that in my life, like I didn't have many opportunities to do a lot of things, because like I've either just went like, yeah, I'll just get it another time, or like I passed it by. And it's kind of like, well, shit, like I could have done that, it would have bettered my chances doing something else. um that being said, it's like it's a very, very good vocal point of the whole album. So I gave it a 9 out of 10 for time. And then we go into The Great Gig in the Sky, which is number 5. Um, from a lyrical standpoint, it's literally the interpretation of all these emotions: death, sorrow, happiness, joy, and pain at all the exact same time. And when you hear I guess, the operatic voice of the lady at the end of the song, I mean, like, it kind of like makes you think, like, is she happy? Is she sad? Like, kind of like pulling at her heartstrings, kind of like making us feel, I guess, with like the sorrow and happiness and all that stuff. I mean, that woman was a very, very beautiful singer. It has a beautiful range on her voice too. So I gave Great Gig in the Sky at 8.5 out of 10. And then there was a solid transition. Um, well, it was a solid transition from time into Great Gig in the Sky, and then it kind of like cuts off there. And then when you go into Money, which is the sixth song on the track here, or on the album, I should say, um, when I look at it, like Money makes you, like, sometimes it makes you public enemy number one, because there's always that person or people that always try to be like, hey, like, on your good side. Like, if you haven't talked to them in, like, 10 plus years, and they always come out of the woodwork being like, hey, like, hey man, can I get some of that money? And then they always go like, well, yeah, like, I'll pay you back, and they don't even pay you back at all. Like, there's always that person or somebody that will, like, when they get a huge sum of money, they could be like the happiest go luckiest guy in the world or woman in the world. But then when money comes into their possession, they turn into completely like different animal. Because, money makes people greedy. And it's like the saying goes, like, money can't buy you happiness. Um, because, money can't do that. But then there's always that other side of it too. Like, here's an example: like the materialistic phase of your life, working and earning money, not thinking much of the greater things in life, reflected even though so cliche music. And then and I mean, I kind of agree with that. Like, like working and earning money, not thinking about the greater things in life. Like, because when somebody gets like, let's say like, if they got $1 million or 2 billion or whatever, they always go for the greater things in life because that's what they want, not what you want to do, but you want to have. And some of these people, like, they buy the fanciest cars, they buy the fanciest house, they buy all these things that they need in life but not want in life. And there's always that one person that's like, hey, like, put some money away or invest it into something because, sometimes rather than later, sometimes that money's gonna run out and what are you gonna do? Um and it's always good to have something to fall back on. Um so I gave money a 8.5 out of 10 as well. It is a very, very good, not scapegoat. It's a very good, I guess like a good reminder of the things in life. Because not everything is always green on the other side. Which food for thought here. Okay, so going into number 7, we have us and them. So this one is kind of talking about the war. It's referencing the sides of the war. But it's always the elderly phase of life. I mean, you've seen it all and you feel like you have done your part. You have become narrow minded and start talking about us and them, like many elderly people do. You attract socially in a more inner circle of close family and friends. Society as a whole becomes less important because you realize you will not be part of it for a long time anymore. Which is a sad state of affairs there. Because like sometimes as time goes on, like you kind of lose the people that you mostly loved or was like hanging around with most of the time. But then some of those people kind of like wither away, kind of just go do their own thing. Um, but then society as a whole kind of becomes less important because it's like you're not for better or for worse, it's like you're not long on this earth anymore if you don't um like think about it that way. Um and I love that it says you have seen it all and you feel like you have done your part, which is like talking about like, like I said in the money thing, like done it all, seen it all and also but it's like what is there to do? Um I kind of agree with that. I also gave Us and Them an 8.5 out of 10 as well. Um, so then you go into number 8, which is Any Color You Like. Now, this one's an instrumental, but what I could find was like what we could take from it is that people should just be able to choose their own perceptions of the world around them, like any color that they like. Because I mean, you could, hate so many other races and all that stuff, but like, some people they just love for who they love. Like there's some people out there that do not like black people. There's some people that don't like Chinese people. There's some people that don't like Mexican people. But it's like you should be able to pick and choose your own perception of like who you like and who you want to be around with because like it's at the end of the day it's like we're all people, we're all humans in our own skin, like because like we didn't choose that life, like so there's some people that like kind of just being like, well, like shit, like I wasn't really wanting to be born into it, but I'm here now. um I gave Any Color You Like an 8 out of 10. I didn't really care for any instrumentals sometimes, but I think it was very, very powerful and the message that was kind of behind it. Um, so then we go into track number 9, which is Brain Damage. So, from what I have heard, I know this song is a tribute to Sid Barrett, who had um, some brain damage in his brain at the time. Um, but from somebody so I have two different points of view here. So from what I had saw was like a men's final descent into insanity. Because to us as the consumer, it's basically in everyday life make you go insane, which is true sometimes. Because look at the look at the themes of the previous songs, like time, money, us and them, and so on. It all leads up to when this normal person goes insane from his normal life. But then when you look at it through the other side of the coin, it's actually about Sid Barrett. He had a mental illness that made him leave the band. That is the brain damage they're talking about. Um, and some people, say, it could be, your brain degenerates, you become detached from the outside world, and real people do not see anymore what you think. You lose touch with reality, and your mind starts doing its own ways. But it feels to you like the rest of the world is doing strange things when the band, but in parentheses, is when the band you're in starts playing different tunes. You get locked up in an institution or elderly home, but more importantly, you get locked up in your own head, sometimes even purposely by making the cut, which is lobotomy. I mean, there's always like a lot of different interpretations with some of these songs too. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's very, very powerful. Um, so when I got to Eclipse, which is the 10th and final song on this album, I had kind of came up with like a not an epiphany, but kind of a broken down sort of ideology sort of thing. So when when we did a breakdown on the wall a few years ago, it was kind of like a movie. I mean, plus it was a movie. Um, but like with the um focal point of like the whole person, being birthed into life and going through all the motions and all stuff too. So I kind of did a little like epiphany thing. So I think of it as a roller coaster with highs and lows because when you see something go good for the main character, there's always something right behind them that's always bad. So with this album, it's basically a normal everyday guy goes to work dealing with money, time, basically the motto in life, death, and taxes. But then it's like he can't take it anymore, so he tries to get rid of the routine. So then he gets shipped off to war. And then it's the exact same thing every day, hours on end, just like what he used to do for work. So then so then what he does, he goes completely breakdown and basically has a mental breakdown that maybe causes brain damage. And then when Eclipse happens, it's him finally being free of all the shit he has been doing. Basically, in layman's terms, he maybe had passed on, but then doesn't have to deal with shit anymore because if you remember, the heartbeat at the end of Eclipse, it starts to slow down. So maybe it's kind of like that kind of ideology. Um, but then I'm looking at something else here too. It says basically the end. Finally, all the actions and contradictions and conflicts in life are resolved and disappear at the point of death. It says, like, the sun is eclipsed by the moon, the night falls for your brain. Even time itself disappears. All that is now and all that is gone, all that is to come. At this point, everything melts together, and you find slash realize slash experience that everything under the sun is in tune, and that all the struggles were constructs of your conscious mind. Then the heartbeat stops. You're gone. It says, I don't see no messages or judgments or philosophies about darkness, just a tale about the phases of life. It helps me to realize what lies ahead for all of us. The Dark Side of the Moon is one of those rare works of art where message, form, and performance have come together in a perfect marriage. Which that is very, very true. I gave Eclipse 8 out of 10. Now I know what you might be thinking. 8 out of 10 on the last song. I know. But I tallied all the scores up, and I basically rounded it up to an 85. It's not a bad album. I just really didn't care for some of the instrumental stuff. Like, if it had some lyrics here and there between some of the instrumental stuff, I mean, it could have maybe hooked me, maybe. Um, but I think it's actually a really, really solid album, and I still think it still holds up like many, many, many years later. And I think it's one of those albums that will stand the test of time because there's always something for everybody within music. Like, for example, like, if somebody did a country album, usually the plot is like, beer, America, and hot chicks. Sometimes, maybe about a dog. You never know. And then the actors is like, usually like maybe Tim McGraw, Brad Paisley, Dirk Bentley, Josh Turner, Morgan Wallen for the newer crowd. And then usually the credit or the direction is like, kind of aiming towards like country folk. But then maybe there's some people that are not into country but that want to get into country. So maybe let them listen to it, And there's always something out there for everybody in music. Let that be a lesson for y'all out there. There's a lot of some people that there could be like, well, I'm not really into this kind of music. Like, well, just give it a try, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. There's always something for everybody. But I'm gonna stop it right there before I go on a huge ramble. And I want to thank you guys for going on this journey with me through Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd album. If you have made it to the very end of this video, we really, really do appreciate it. And follow us on all social media links in the description below, which will take you to our Linktree page, which will take you to our Instagram pages, Twitter pages, the podcast Red page is on there. My gaming YouTube channel is at over 1,900 subscribers right now. I know on Shoot the Shit, it was at 1,800, or close to, I think at the time of recording, it was like 17 something. It's way past that now. Like, it's at over 1,900 right now. And, I don't know what to say, really. I would just want to say thank you. Um, and tonight's song of the night, it is going to be a Pink Floyd song. I mean, shocker. It is going to be The Wall. And yeah, I mean, it's Pink Floyd, The Wall. I mean, why not? Um, but yeah, that's it, and I will see you guys next Thursday. Peace.